Podcasting. Anyone ever thought about having a podcast? Where do I start? Where do I begin? Here's a tip for you, something that I use, Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. It is absolutely free, and they provide all the creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your computer, phone, tablet, whatever device you have. It is super convenient, and Anchor will even distribute your podcast for you. Your podcast can be on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Grow your listeners and get as many people as possible to listen to your podcast. Everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Let's do it.
Shows are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Welcome to the Edventures in Tech podcast. Talking the latest tips and trends in educational technology to innovate and engage your students. Here are your hosts, Andrew and Dan.
Welcome to episode 20 of the Adventures in Tech podcast. I am one of your hosts, Andrew.
And I'm the other host, Dan.
And we are excited you have joined us on this Jersey. Dan, can't believe it's 20 episodes already.
I know, for real, 20 episodes.
It's crazy. It's mind-boggling. But if you like the content, help us out by providing feedback and a rating on wherever you download your podcast from. We greatly appreciate your support. We have a ton of classroom updates. Before we get to that, Dan, I got to get my Would You Rather.
Here we go.
And it's only fitting that I'm using this one this week.
All right, bring it.
Would you rather, and I think you could do this anyways, win an Olympic gold medal or an Academy Award? Don't be Will Smith.
Oh,
you didn't know where I was going with that one.
Yeah, I know. I think I'd rather win an Olympic gold medal.
Yeah, you probably can with how much you run, so that's okay. You know?
No, I think that would be much more satisfying at this moment.
I think so as well. Yeah, it's only fitting. So, okay. Anyways, before we go off the rails, so let's get right into the nitty-gritty and the classroom updates. Dan, I know you've been busy with sixth grades. Let's just give a little synopsis of what's going on.
So we're looking at a lot of the different, we've really been building a lot with the teachers that we're working with, and a lot as a result of this podcast.
Yep, 1,000%.
So that's been great, opening up a lot of different doors for Andrew and myself to get into the classroom. So kind of working with sixth grade, they've been doing a lot of writing when it comes to teen activism, and they were identifying teen activists and basically researching and writing about their motivations and their efforts. So we kind of took it and we worked with, the teachers and also with our PD specialists and, kind of taking it to another level. Looking at, they have all this great research on teen activism, but then we posed them with a question, driving question, what does it mean to be a teen activist? So we kind of went through a design thinking process, and now they're taking all their research to answer the question, what does it mean to be an activist? So it's been pretty exciting, and the quality of work has been, honestly, it's been spectacular what the students are coming up with, and, working with them to really provide their information that they know to an audience, and we're using podcasting, of course, as that venue,
platform, yeah,
as that platform. So been there for a week or so, and looking forward to getting those recordings and sharing them out.
It'll be wrapping up in the next couple days, right?
Right. So the great thing is, it's we look at these little, I guess we can call it a mini PBL experience that we went through. Kind of like, as John and Tara call it, their PBL Tepis.
Yeah.
So we went this little mini PBL, and really it's been 2 days in the classroom and another 2 for recording. So, taking that opportunity doesn't dominate, your whole day and everything you're doing. So really thankful for that.
Yeah, lots been going on, and I know I want to talk to you about one other thing, but before I forget, I had the experience where I was actually able to work with the anatomy class over at John Jay, and we had a special guest. We talk about those experiences, maybe not being able to go on field trips like normal, but we said bring those experts in, and some are in person, some are still connecting virtually. So we were able to talk with Dr. Fulton of the Westchester Medical Center Corporation and had a huge discussion on vascular surgery, and it was awesome. The students were so engaged. He was great. And again, just another thing of way to really engage your students is bringing those experts in, and, now where they go from there. And these kids had great questions. I was blown away. So, big props to their teacher. It was awesome. Dan, I want to talk. We talked about March Madness and your green screening.
Right. So again, working with some ninth graders through the March, they've been doing a poetry bracket challenge.
Great.
So I know the teachers who are doing this are probably listening to this right now, but I just really want to give kudos to them throughout the whole process because, it was really great to see the students take ownership. You definitely ride those waves in these experiences. Like you hit really high points, you go to low points where you think, are they really going to be able to pull it together? But I think overall, I don't think I know overall, it was such an amazing learning experience. So they basically were analyzing different poems, and through their analysis, they were trying to see, convince people which poems should win as they faced off with one another. And they presented their evidence for the Final Four using some green screen recording. And what I really liked about it is the students got into the editing and production aspects of it as well. So that's been super fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I got to see bits and pieces of it. I know you took the reins on that one, but I can't wait to see the final product with that. Other things that have been going on, we do have a lot of trailers. We're starting our writing reviews, and kind of I think the teachers have decided to go to a podcast format in first grade with writing and discussion of restaurant reviews and really elaborating on what they liked on the menu and reasons why. So that's going to be, exciting as that kind of.
See my Yelp review template I made for you.
I love it. They're loving it, and
are you using it?
So, again, teacher choice, we gave them that. We gave them regular green screen. We gave them podcasts. As of now, I think they're going to do the audio, but I think we want to take it one step further where the audio will then go on the Yelp review.
Right. I had so much fun making that Yelp review slide.
So that's, it's, I don't want to overwhelm anyone with that. What else is going on? So I know we have a lot of podcasting. I was launching number talks with a bunch of our PD specialists and 4th and 5th grade classrooms. So the podcast systems are out and about and really getting utilized. So that is coming up as we start to, have the students record and produce their podcasts, in general. And then we also have, I had the opportunity to work with first graders, and we green screened. And this was great when we talked about the science standards with sound and light waves. And the teacher and our PD specialist, Tara, had brought in particular emotions. And I tell you, the videos were awesome. And the kids were able to relate to it because they kind of tied it into the movie Inside Out. So another great experience for our students, another, PBL thing that, with the students were able to transfer that knowledge of the sound and light waves, and they created this performance to show these emotions. And we know that's so important after coming out of the pandemic, so the students were really able to express themselves. So there's just a ton going on at this time of the year. And I'd be remiss if I don't mention, Dan, what we found last week. And we're going to put a link. Music Lab. ChromeExperiments.com.
Chrome Experiments,
so we're going to put that in
Lab.
there. We had some fun with that.
We did. So it was, we won't go down that rabbit hole.
No.
There's a lot in there.
So lots going on in the classrooms, and just want to talk now weekly windup.
All right.
We have been talking about Google Classroom, and so Google Workspace is now going to have practice sets in Google Classroom, and you're going to be able to create those interactive assignments, and it'll be launching in beta.
All right, and they have some auto-grading built in, and teachers can receive performance insights and snapshots into student progress and use those insights to help inform future lessons. So
it is coming. We don't know exactly when, but you may be able to say, "What is this?" So you can say you heard it here first, right?
Right,
so
that's it.
When breaking news, when it does come out, it will be available to Google Workspace Education Plus and the Teaching and Learning Upgrade customers for those who subscribe to that within their districts. All right, Google Meet.
Yeah, I got my first one the other day when I just had a quick Google Meet with one other person. I said, hey, I got an attendance report for that. So Google Meet attendance reports are available now for meetings with 2 or more participants. I think it used to be 5.
It was 5.
5. So now if you have 2 people, you'll get that attendance report sent to you.
Which, it can be beneficial as you're meeting with, if it's not just a phone call or whatnot. I mean, they can use a phone call, parents, but that communication factor, then you have proof of record that you have met with a parent or a team about a student, and there's all that data to support as you're trying to support the student's academic progress. So just another report tool that can help us.
All right.
Sticking with Google Meet, let's talk about noise cancellation. They're kind of moving that a little bit further, and it's going to be in every Google Workspace edition. Mm-hmm. Not that it was not really needed, but the noise cancellation, so the background noises won't come through. So when, your dog's barking, Dan, we won't hear it. Basically, that's what it comes down to.
But my dog has so much character.
Yeah. Okay, and finally, news-wise, we want to talk about the Efficient Teach right? Station rotation cards, which will be a good segue.
I think that will be a good segue. So this was, I got this in my email the other day. Of course, Matt Miller, we talked about his Efficient Teach. I think we'll be hearing from Matt directly in a little bit. But, one of the things that we talked about in our blended learning with looking at Catlin Tucker and how to, integrate that and infuse that in the classroom was the idea of station rotation. Mm-hmm. So I know we had a lot of feedback asking about that model. So when Matt released this as a part of his Efficient Teach book that's coming out, I thought we should talk about and add it into our resources in the show notes. So station rotation cards, it's a Google slide deck that you can make a copy of. And what it does is it gives you ideas for different stations in your classroom for students to run through. And it's really nice. It's broken down for all levels, then K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12. And then it has a blending of offline stations, online, and blended. So there's a lot of cool resources in there.
It's really almost like a cheat sheet. And remember, as we've discussed, the Efficient Teach premise is teach better and save time for what matters most. So I'm excited to see where the Efficient Teach book goes, with the crowdsourcing of the book. I think it's going to be a phenomenal book when everything is said and done. And you're right. So that's going to get us into our guest, a distinguished guest, I should say. And we'd like to call him the Maverick Educator. And we're going to talk about Matt Miller. I did want to mention, with things going on before we get to Matt, we will be, after this episode, we're going to be taking a little hiatus with spring break, and live episodes will be coming back. We will have a replay episode, and a live episode will be launching again on, I believe it will be April 21st will be the next new episode. So without further ado, let's talk to our Maverick Educator, Matt Miller. So Matt is the distinguished author, podcaster, blogger, everything. And he's got Tech Like a Pirate, but he also has other books that he's written that he can give us a little insight on as well. One is Do More with Google Classroom, Ditch That Textbook, Ditch That Homework, and Don't Ditch That Tech. Is that correct? Hit them all, Matt.
You got them all. That's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, you got them.
We're going to open up, guys. Tell us a little bit about your inspiration behind the Tech Like a Pirate book.
Okay, so you asked about the inspiration behind Tech Like a Pirate?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So it really, very much came out of my own high school Spanish class, just like we were talking about. So here I am in little bitty rural West Central Indiana, teaching at little rural schools, public schools. To give you kind of an idea of how small we're talking about, like the last school that I taught at had a graduating class of 32 kids. We had a drive your tractor to school day once. So if that kind of gives you a picture, any of you grew up in one of those schools, familiar with those kind of schools? Not really. Okay. All right. Maybe a few. All right. Anyway, teaching at those little bitty schools, thankfully, we had some technology. Most recently I taught in a school that had not quite one-to-one Chromebooks, but we had a whole bunch of Chromebook carts. And so we did lots and lots of stuff in my class with Chromebooks. But before that, years ago, I was taking kids to down to the computer lab if I could. We had these tank-sized rolling carts with laptops in them and these like big heavy external batteries that you could plug into them. That was awful. It took like 3 kids to push these carts down to your room. And there was a flat spot on the wheels, so it was like boom, boom, boom. Yeah. Thankfully, we've evolved from there. But anyway, throughout my my time kind of getting to know that technology and figuring out how it fit in my classroom, I kept kind of like coming back to this idea that when I was teaching straight out of the textbook, you know, marching chapter by chapter through the textbook, assigning worksheets, assigning workbook pages and all of that stuff. And, you know, I kind of had these glazed over looks on my students' faces. You know, whenever I tried to talk to them in Spanish, I wasn't getting a whole lot out of it. And I'm like, man, there's got to be something better than this. There's got to be a better way. And so I just, you know, started looking for ways that we could make class engaging and interesting and make sure that it still served the purpose of the class, you know, that it's still focused in on good learning. And so really since I got this book, Teach Like a Pirate by Dave Burgess, that was the one that kind of started everything. I remember reading this book and I kept seeing all of these hooks. You know, there were these ideas that he had for making class interesting and fun and engaging. And I kept thinking of ways to use technology to do all of those. And so I got this book like all the way back in 2013. I mean, I've had this thing for a long time. To show you that, to tell you the like brand of teacher geek that I am. I don't know if any of you can sympathize with this, but like the brand of teacher geek that I am. I asked for this book, Teach Like a Pirate, for my birthday. It was a birthday present.
Awesome.
Anybody can relate to that? Maybe not so much. Okay. All right. That's cool. That's cool. So yeah, the more that I looked at it, the more that I loved the ideas in it. And I kept like brainstorming all these ways to do it with technology. And I didn't realize it, but when I read that book for the first time in 2013, all the way up until 2020, when this book was published, I was kind of like writing that book. I was writing Tech Like a Pirate for the last, 7 years or whatever. So that's really what it is just my own personal desire to make class engaging. And it's like asking the question, can technology help you do that? And I found that the answer is yes. And I found that there are kind of like 7 or 8 main areas where I was seeing success and I knew other teachers were seeing success, different ways of using technology to make class engaging. And so those became some of the main chapters of the book. So, you know, I could probably tell you that some of these, what some of them are, and it won't surprise you because, you know, you've been in it, like social media and apps, video, games, images, you know, just different stuff like that. And so I wrote entire chapters based on those things in hopes of giving you some ideas and giving you some stuff to think about so you could come up with your own ideas. So that is where Tech Like a Pirate came from.
That's great. You know, thanks, Matt. And, you know, it's funny you bring that up. We really honed in on, you know, the chapters you were just talking about too. When we talked about being a Maverick teacher.
Yes.
And creating the experience without actually needing the technology, because obviously, you know, at the forefront is obviously kids, you know, and we have K-12 here in this realm in tonight's session, but the security and privacy of our students is obviously of the utmost importance. But being able to use the Google tools and everything else has really afforded us as educators the opportunity to increase that engagement, which has been a big struggle since the pandemic started because they were used to that. So, you know, I think, you know, us having the opportunity to do and have your book study at a time where the kids have been in this realm for just about a year now really has given us as educators and all, you know, all of our colleagues kind of food for thought of how we can bring that level of engagement to another tier.
Sure, absolutely. I also felt, I'll just mention this real quick. I felt very fortunate in the timing that the book came out, because it came out in March of 2020 or March or April. I can't remember exactly when it was. And behind the scenes, see, a lot of people don't know this. Behind the scenes, we were having discussions on, oh man, because a lot of people were who had books that were getting ready to come out at this time had the big discussion when the pandemic hit. Is it a good idea to put this out right now? Everybody's sort of struggling right now. Is it appropriate to do? Is it helpful to do? Is it going to be good for the book? Is it going to be good for people? And I remember talking to Dave Burgess, my publisher and the author of Teach Like a Pirate. We talked about it, and I was like, it seems like now is kind of the perfect time for this book to come out, because a lot of people are trying to make sense of technology.
Yep.
And I don't know about you, but it was like, for a lot of teachers, it was, we get into this remote teaching and we're just trying to survive. It was like break glass in case of emergency. That's where we were at that point, like it was almost like we were thrown out of a boat and we were just trying to get back to the surface of the water to get a breath. And it was like, can I get some lessons up on our learning management system by Monday? So kids will have something to do on Monday. And after we kind of like got past that emergency stage, it was still a lot of, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And one of the big things that wasn't as much in people's minds, because we were in that survival mode, was, how can we make learning engaging? How can we make it fun? How can we bring joy to it? How can we bring joy to it for the kids? How can we bring joy to it for ourselves? And, that's really the heart of the book. That's the whole reason that I wrote it. So when it came out, it just seemed like it hit at the right time, where a lot of people were just looking for some joy in some way, shape, or form, especially in remote learning, especially for kids. I mean, we heard all of the horror stories in the news, and we saw some of them in our own buildings, of like, kids who were burdened and bogged down with lots of stuff. And, on top of all the concerns that we had in the world and everything, it was tough. And so I was just happy that it came out at a time where it was able to serve some people. So I don't know if that's where you were going with that, but I just kind of felt like mentioning that. I hope that's okay.
Absolutely. No. And that's great, to piggyback off that, and when the pandemic hit and the book came out, and even though, a lot of people, read it, the thing that I know that I can speak of, and I know Dan and a couple, other people on this call, is, you were constantly giving. You're one of the most generous people online. You are always sharing and collaborating and not trying to make a quick buck, off of it. You're helping educators all over. Here's this template. Try this, try that. You're always willing to, you answer Twitter messages, you do this, all those things, and I know, John Salmon, he's our STEAM PD specialist. One of the things that I showed him right away was your sticky note Google Slides template.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just like, he was like, wow, I don't have to recreate something like Padlet. It just took the place of Padlet with a freebie. Mm-hmm. And absolutely right away, he started utilizing that in his classroom. So, I know I can speak for everybody, in the sense that we're appreciative that you're always so willing to share and collaborate, to give all those things out to, to educators all over.
Yeah. I'm fortunate that the way things work, Ditch That Textbook and Tech Like a Pirate and all that stuff, that's my full-time job right now. And I feel fortunate that I'm in a position where I can take some of that time and give some of that out for free. That really is one of my big passions. And I kind of feel like, with all of this stuff that's out there that isn't for free, like there's all sorts of stuff on Teachers Pay Teachers, and like, I know that sometimes people put up Google Slides templates for like $3 or $5 or a bundle for $9 or something like that. And some of you are like, I just spent some of that not too long ago. And I'm like, I don't want to nickel and dime teachers for Google Slides templates. Like, you guys spend so much out of your own pockets for your classes and for your students and everything. And like, let's not do Teachers Pay Teachers. Let's do Matt gives teachers. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, that's kind of what I want to try to go for whenever possible. Of course, whenever I write a book, it's nice, for somebody to pay $24.95 for a book or whatever it is, but I can still give away lots of stuff too.
That's it. We'll market it as the MGT website, Mac Gives Teachers website.
There you go. There you go.
But I just want to echo again. We are all appreciative of your time here tonight, and then everything you've given us over the years. I know for Andrew and myself, working our position as tech integration specialists, I know a lot of people here. One of the first places we go when we're looking for what's trending, what's new, what's reliable, and what actually makes a difference in the learning environment. Ditch That Textbook is that first stop for
cool.
me where to go, because the community that it's coming from. It's a giving community, and it's a community of educators, which is fantastic to have. I mean, it just seems like, this whole personal learning network right out there on Twitter, where people are giving and sharing and doing what's best for students. So
right.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, my pleasure. Absolutely.
So Matt, let's talk technology. So we know we're coming out of this pandemic, right? And
Yes.
the learning has evolved. All educators' capacity has grown tenfold.
Right.
So as we move forward, how important is it in the realm of education to make sure that we kind of have a technology floor, for lack of a better term, of where we as educators should, kind of start the year off? Because, ideally we're hopeful, and I don't know what's going on in Indiana with your own kids in the school. We have 5 days a week, but 4 days are in person, and that just happened in March. We do have Wednesdays is a fully remote day.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of, kids that are still home for, a number and a variety of reasons. What are your thoughts on how do we as educators, create these experiences, continue and to evolve with the learning that we've had, and lift other educators up, our colleagues at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was mentioning earlier, it seems like, there were a lot of people who talked about how they were convinced that remote learning was broken, and therefore education was broken. And, you heard all of the frustrations. And of course there certainly were frustrations, but I know for a fact some kids thrived during remote learning, and some teachers, even if they didn't thrive 100% all the way across the board, it's like almost everybody I've talked to found something that they liked during that time that they think that they're going to keep, In fact, I'm super curious, if it's okay. Could I ask anybody who has an answer to that? Was there something within remote learning that you discovered that you think you'll keep around? Would you drop that in the chat? I'm super curious to see what you all have to say. And I think that's part of, while you're typing, that's part of my answer to that question is, if we found something that really worked with kids, or that really worked for us in our attempts to serve our kids, then maybe that's what we hang on to. It's not necessarily to say that, we have to, go 100% digital all the time, but if it makes sense, if it's something that levels up our teaching, I kind of look at it this way, like if this was the level where our teaching was before, and if something that we learned in remote learning causes it to do, I may be oversimplifying this, but this is the best way it makes sense in my brain. If something that we learned makes it do this, then we keep it. I mean, I think it's just as simple as that. I'm starting to see some of those comments come in. I wanted to see what some of those said.
Go ahead,
yeah. Lisa says the versatility of Google Slides. I mean, you're preaching to the choir here. I like to joke that I would try to solve all of education's problems with the right Google slide deck.
Right. It's called the Swiss Army knife.
See, there's another Google Teacher podcast reference. I love it. I love it. Very nicely done. Claire said, I was pushed to learn some more ways of using technology in the classroom and feel comfortable doing it. That's great. And, that's like validation, right? That it's working. John said virtual grade level meetings, covering more ground at one time. See, that's great. I think I wonder what the effects of the pandemic are going to do to our abilities to meet. I think it highlighted how important face-to-face meetings are for some things, and how efficient we can be and how much more we can get done if we don't have face-to-face meetings, and learning when to deploy them and how. Megan said the versatility of Google Meets. You got the breakout rooms, and a lot of that. Actually, Megan, I think that's interesting that you mentioned that. I've heard some people saying that one of their favorite things out of remote learning was the Zoom chat or the Google Meet chat, being able to engage kids. I know the chat makes some people roll their eyes and it makes them frustrated because, who knows what the kids are going to type in there. But with some people, they were able to engage kids in those chats in different ways and in better ways. Not always better, not like it's, across the board better, but in some ways it was better. And they want to find ways to be able to carry that over. I'm actually working right now on a blog post I'm going to publish tomorrow about, it's like 5 ways to keep that Zoom chat idea in the face-to-face classroom. So I'm going to have that coming out in my email newsletter at Ditch That Textbook tomorrow. Wendy mentioned Flipgrid. I feel like, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I feel like Flipgrid was one of the heroes of remote learning because it let us see each other's faces and hear each other's voices, and we didn't have to be on a live video call. And, I think those of us that learned how to blend the, face-to-face at the same time versus the on your own time, I think that ended up being huge. I know for me, I've got 3 kids at home, freshman, 7th grader, 5th grader. And when all 3 of them were asked to be on a live video call at the same time, our rural internet could not keep up. So being able to, do that, I'm trying to avoid that word, those big long words. One of them starts with an A. I saw on Facebook, I saw a meme on Facebook that was like somebody losing their mind going, if I have to hear the words asynchronous and synchronous one more time, just because it was over and over and over again. Right. Were you guys like that too? Did you kind of get sick of those words? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember doing trainings at the beginning of it, and I'm trying to teach people what those words are, and now everybody wants to punch me in the face whenever I say them. So, Jocelyn says online tutoring, which is awesome. Being able to provide that extra support. Laura says something as simple as Google Classroom to stay organized. Yeah. And not just learning how to use Google Classroom, but Laura says to stay organized, like learning how to do it effectively so that, we can do what we need more efficiently. Nicole says student choice. My goodness, I really feel like the ones that did the best remote teaching and remote learning were the ones who built some choice in, because you have that flexibility. If we're doing, sorry, I'm going to use the word again. If we're doing things asynchronously and kids can do them on their own time, if we give them a few options, or if we let them self-select some options, how is that different? And a lot of times it doesn't even take us extra time to plan. So I thought that was huge. Deanne says, I was using minimal technology before, but there are so many things I'll continue using from here on in. Those are the success stories I love to hear. Jennifer says Google Slides for reading comprehension. Enabling students to mark up the passage in various ways. That's super cool when you get a passage of text and you can write on it or put little circles around it or comments. Nancy says online extra help. Brianna says stepping out of the comfort zone. Jocelyn, online department meetings. Yeah, there's a bunch of them in here that are really good. I don't want to you can kind of read the comments too. Jocelyn says, no. All problems can be solved with Google Sheets. Google Sheets. I've got a friend who teaches she used to be in California. Now she's in Kansas, named Alice Keeler. She co-authored one of the books with me, Ditch That Homework. And she says, she's with you. All problems can be solved with the right Google Sheet. So yeah, anyway, I'm seeing lots of good stuff in here. And so thank you all for sharing that. And that's not to say that remote learning was all sunshine and rainbows and puppy dogs, it wasn't fantastic all the time, but I think there are definitely wins. And Andrew, to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, it does give us the opportunity to level up, to change some things. Before a lot of us were clamoring to try new things with technology and step out of your comfort zone. Well, by golly, we all just got shoved out of our comfort zones for a year, so hopefully there's some results of that come around. And that's one of the things I'm excited about all this. So thank you. Thank you for asking that. I'm glad we got to talk about that.
That's awesome. So when we talk about we know you're still doing the blogging, and we know that the podcast is kind of sunset for now. For those who don't know, Matt had a podcast called the Google Teacher Podcast. It's still available. There's 150 something episodes, right?
Something like that.
So if you go back and listen to episode 1, you'll be like, whew, that was a long time ago. That platform has changed thousands of times now.
I don't want to listen to episode 1 either. Oh, it was a little bit that's the way every episode 1 should be on a podcast. I think it should be dreadful compared to your 150th episode.
That's it. But he's got, that. So as far as inspiration, like what's coming next, Matt? And we know you're speaking a lot of virtual conferences now, you're blogging. Are you writing another book? Are you going to go back into the podcast world? Because you also had the Ditch That Textbook podcast, which was, a nice 5-7 minute podcast with a quick tip,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That one was fun. I ended up finding that when I first started it, it's like any other project that I do. I don't know if any of you are like this with like projects around your house or anything else you take on. You're like, oh, that won't take that long. Mm-hmm. For me, it's always like 3 times longer than I expect it to be. So I'm like, 5-minute podcast, no big deal. I'll just record it on my phone. I've got an app that helps me publish it. Like, it'll be easy. It'll be no big deal. And then it was taking like hours out of my week every single week. So that one probably will not come back around, but I am working on another book right now. So I did the book, Do More with Google Classroom. I'm working with a co-author to do one for the Canvas learning management system. So we're focusing specifically on that. I'm sure there will be another book at some point, but one thing that I'm doing right now that's kind of cool is I'm working together with a fellow, teacher, author, speaker person named Holly Clark. The two of us together are doing a teacher membership. So it's like a monthly thing where there's a couple of parts to it. One is Holly and I do all of the nerdy research about what works in education. We'll pick a topic for a month and we'll do a bunch of nerdy research and we'll put it into this little research cheat sheet. So in like just a few pages of little quick takeaways, it's like, here's what the research says. Here's what you can do in class. So kind of boil it down to that. We have a community, like a Facebook community where people can interact and everything. But the thing I love about it the most is that, we've got this members only podcast in it where you get like a little 5 to 10 minute snippet every day from us. And we talk about the topic and we talk about some of the things that are going on in the Facebook group and everything. And you can only get that podcast through the membership and everything. And we thought that podcast might be listened to by people on their way to school or on their way home from school, like on their commute. So we called the whole membership The Drive. And so that's kind of what we're working on right now. I've never done anything like this before, but it's fun to get to know people a little more deeply. Because a lot of times, whenever I get to go work with schools or school districts, it's like I'm there for a day and then I go back home. And so anyway, that's kind of what is also going on. Oh, Art says I've enjoyed Matt's TikTok videos. I am on TikTok. TikTok is super fun. Can I see show of hands in your screens? Like how many of you do TikTok? Do any of you do TikTok? I see 1 hand, 2 hands, 3 hands. Okay. All right. That's cool. Before I started recording TikTok videos, I didn't really do it myself. And it's been super fun. It's a different group. They do a lot of like, here's what it's really like to be a teacher type of stuff, like teacher, like real life stuff. And there's some people that are really funny on there. So anyway, yeah, that's the long answer to your short question.
That was a great interview with Matt Miller. We have to break it down into 2 episodes, so stay tuned for part 2 of our interview with Matt on the next episode. Once again, thank you for all your support, listening on all the platforms, leaving us a review. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, please reach out. Tech hard, work smart, live an adventure.
Find Andrew on all socials at @ANicola Tech and Dan at WCSD Tech DR.